Our learning goal for 0.3 is that we can understand the process of adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing integers, including negatives, and that we can actually do it. So we're going to start with adding and subtracting. To help us understand it, I just want to look at a couple different models. So one way is we can think of a number line. So when we're adding or subtracting on the number line, we always think about if it's positive, it's moving us to the right. If it's a minus, or if it's a negative, it's moving us to the left. So I know we know 3 plus 4 is 7, right? But here's the reason why. I start with 3. So 3 is positive, so I go 1, 2, 3. I'm right there. I'm adding 4 to it, so I move 4 to the right. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's my positive 3. There's my positive 4, and altogether, right, that puts us at 7. And I realize we don't need that to add 3 and 4 together, but it does help us when we get to negatives to kind of think about how that works. So if you look at this next one, negative 3 plus negative 4. So this time, because it's a negative 3, I'm going to move 3 spaces to the left. That puts me right there. And then I'm adding to that a negative 4. When I add a negative 4, that move again, the 4 is negative, so I'm going to move myself 4 spaces to the left again. Right, there's my negative 3. Then I add a negative 4 to it. They both move to the left, so that puts us at negative 7 would be the answers for that. Negative 3 plus 4. So on that one we would start. I would move 3 places to the left. It puts me at negative 3. But then it's a plus a positive 4. That's going to move me back 4 to the right. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So we end up right there at 1. So you can think about what happens if you have one that's negative, one that's positive. You kind of think about what happens there. I'm gonna have you guys write your own rules here in just a second on what happens. I want to point out this one, 3 plus negative 4. What happens here? So if I have 3 plus negative 4, I start at a positive 3, right? 1, 2, 3. Then I'm adding negative 4. That's going to move me back 4 to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to put me at negative 1. Something I want to point out, adding a negative 4 is the same thing as subtracting 4. So if you want to put this right underneath that, where it says 3 plus negative 4, add 3 minus 4. It's the same thing. The 3 is still positive. 1, 2, 3. The 4, because you're subtracting, is still moving you to the left. So these two expressions are equivalent to each other. What that means up above here is I could have written that negative 3 plus negative 4. I could have written that as negative 3 minus 4 also. They're equivalent. Okay, they mean the same thing. That's one way to look at it. Kind of think of the number line. I think that gives us a good visual. When I'm thinking in my head, what the answer to a problem is going to be, a lot of times I'm picturing this number line. Another way you can picture it is you can think about using these little circles. The white one over there is a positive and the red one's a negative. We want to see what happens. So if I want to go 3 plus 4, the way I'd model that is we'd start with, and we would grab 3 of the positives first. So I've got 1, 2, 3. So there's my 3. And then I'm simply just adding to that 4 more. There's 1, 2, 3. Whoops, sorry about that. 3, 4. And when you're doing addition, you're just combining all those. Well, if I've got 3, I've got 3 of them. I've got 4 more of them. I count it up, right? Altogether, I have 7. Now, let's do this negative 3 plus 4 down here. So now to represent a negative 3, I'm going to do these yellow, the red ones, show that they're negative. There's 1, 2, 3 negatives. I grab 4 of these positives. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here's what happens, right? As I pair these up, a negative 1 and a positive 1 just cancel each other out. So those two are now gone. Right, we can cross those off. Then I have another negative and another positive. Again, those two are just gone. I've got another negative and another positive. They're gone. Hey, that leaves me with a positive 1. So hopefully that can kind of help us visualize a little bit what's happening. The 3 negatives are canceling out with 3 of the positives. Just leave us with 1 positive left over. In that third example, right, I've got -3, and I've got -4. Let's put them up over here. Okay, and what's going to happen with those, right, is they're not going to cancel each other out. If I add 3 negatives and 4 negatives together, all I do is just have 7 negatives. So that's my answer up here, -7. Let's do this last one. So if I take +3 right there, and I take -4 right there, again, if I pair them up, this time, again, those 3 negative positives cancel out 3 of the negatives, but this time I have a negative left over, so that answer is going to be negative. So you can kind of see, like, when I'm adding and subtracting, when did it come out to be positive? Well, it's when I had more positives than I did negatives. When did it come out to be negative? When I had more negatives than I did positives. But they are just canceling each other out, so in reality, you just end up subtracting them. What I want you to do is take just a second. I want you to see if you can come up with your own rule, just in your own words, on how you can, what happens when you add a positive and a negative, and what happens when you add 2 negatives. So write your own rule. Pause it for just a minute, write your own rule, then we'll talk about it together. Right? If you add a positive and a negative, you really end up subtracting the 2 numbers, right? Take the absolute value of the numbers. What I mean by that is just think of that as a 4 and a 3. If I subtract them, I get 1. And then you just have to ask yourself, were there more positives or there were more negatives? Well, there were more positives, so it's a positive 1. Okay, adding 2 negatives, go back up to this top part. When you add 2 negatives, nothing cancels out. Right up here we had 3 negatives and 4 negatives. So all I really do is take the absolute value of those 2. What I mean by that is don't worry about the negatives. Just take 3 plus 4 is 7, right? And it's going to be a -7. If I have -3 and -4 all together, I'm going to have a -7. They just combine. So make sure you have that down. I don't know, I would rather you understand like why we do it than necessarily memorizing a rule. But in the end, you just need to know how to add or subtract positives and negatives. And make sure, just as a side note, we talked about this, but remember that 3 plus -4 is the same as 3 minus 4. -3 plus -4 is the same as -3 minus 4. So just know that those 2 are the same. Hey, one last thing we need to go through is, and you guys have seen this before, but what happens when we minus a negative? So I have 3 minus -4. Some of you will remember the rule because you've memorized it. But what happens is this. Think of the number line. I'm at 0. I go over to 3. I'm right there. And then I'm minusing the -4. The first minus moves me to the left. The second minus flip-flops the direction and moves me back to the right. So when you have minus a negative, just remember it's the same thing as the 2 together make it a positive. It ends up being a 3 plus 4. So the one negative moves me left. The other one flips me back right. End up moving to the right. You end up there at +7. Okay, so that's just one other side note. Minus a negative changes to a positive. All right, here's some practice problems. I want you to pause this and go down through these problems real quick and make sure you got them all, and then we'll come back together and I'll give you the answers. All right, hopefully you pause that and work down through these. I'll just run through them really quick. We got 1's -4, 2's -7, 3. You have opposite signs like that. You subtract them. 10 minus 7 is 3, and there's more negatives, so it's a -3. -5 plus 11, same thing. You subtract them. There's more positives, so a +6. 5, they're both negatives. Just add them together, -7. Hey, 5 minus 7 is the same as 5 plus -7. I am at +5. I move back 7. It puts me at -2. 7 should be -40. 8 is -37. Hey, 9 and 10, we're adding and subtracting fractions. I worked down through those. I got a common denominator first, right? And this first one was 12, right? I got 12. So it stays 12. I just take the top and go -4 minus 9. Well, -4 is moving left, -9 is moving left. So I add them together. They're both negative. So -13 twelfths. The second one, 20 is your common denominator. I times them by 5. So I got 15 over 20 plus, and I got negative 12 over 20. Okay, keep the 20 the same. You add the top, 15 plus negative 12 adds up to be 3, so 3/20ths. Okay, make sure you understood those. If not, look back at the examples again. Maybe go back to the start of the video. Make sure you're understanding the adding and subtracting. We're going to go over multiplying next. When you think of multiplication, it's directional. So when I multiply two numbers, say I go 2 times 3 down here, that really means take the 2 and add it together 3 times. So I'm going 2, 2, 2, puts me at a positive 6. When I go 2 times negative 3, what it's saying is take negative 3 twice. So I got to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So because I'm taking the negative 3 twice, it takes me to the left. The second one, this one over here is a little more confusing. If I have negative 3 times negative 2, well, it's kind of like we talked about with minus and negative. The one negative takes me left, but the other negative reflects it back to the right. So if you have 2 negatives, it ends up being a positive. So that would put us over here at positive 6 also. So what you have to remember is this. Here's a summary of the rules. If they have the same sign, if you multiply 2 numbers with the same sign, then your answer is always going to be positive. Okay, if you multiply 2 numbers with opposite signs, so multiply 2 numbers with opposite signs, then your answer is always going to be negative. So don't confuse this with addition. Addition, it depends. If you add 2 numbers that have opposite signs, it depends which one you have more of. If you have more positives, your answer is positive. If you have more negatives, your answer is negative. But when you're multiplying, it doesn't matter. Same sign, 2 positives or 2 negatives always give you a positive. Opposite signs always give you a negative. Here's a few quick examples. Pause this again, work down through it, see if you've got it, and then you can start the video again. I'll show you the answers, and you can check to see if you did it correctly. Those have opposite signs. That would be negative 15. Now, when you do 2 at a time, start with the first 2. You can only do 2 at a time. So negative 2 times negative 1 is a positive 2. Now times those last 2. 2 times a negative 7, well, opposite signs. So it comes out to be a negative 14. If there is a fraction, just put it over 1. And again, you got a negative times a positive. They're opposite signs, so the answer is a negative. 7 times 1, 7 times 1. So you get 7 over 7. That's really just 1. You can reduce it down. Hey, 14, you're dividing. So I didn't specifically mention dividing, but division and multiplication follow the same rules. So if you look at 14, I have a negative divided by a negative. That means my answer is going to be a positive. And 35 divided by 7, or by 5, excuse me, is 7. Hey, 15, just remember, make that into a fraction. I'm multiplying 2 negatives. They have the same sign, so my answer is a positive. 5 times 3, 1 times 4. That'd be my answer right there. 16, I've got 2 negatives again. They got the same sign. The answer is positive. 17, they've got the same sign, so the answer is going to be positive. 1 times 14, 7 times 15. I think that's 85. No, nope, I was wrong there. That's 105. And 7 goes into both of those. You actually end up with 2/15 if you take a factor of 7 out of both 14 and 105. 18 is like a double whammy because you got to worry about positive, negatives, plus its dividing fractions. The first thing I'm going to do is rewrite it as multiplication, right? That was our rule. Times by a negative 2 over 3. Okay, now I've got a positive times a negative. That means my answer is going to be negative because they have opposite signs. 3 times 2, 7 times 3. So a negative 6 over 21. And you can reduce that. They both have a factor of 3. So if I divide them both by 3, I end up with a negative 2/7 right there. Hey, as a side note, when you go to multiply, if you notice you have a factor of 3 on top and the bottom, you can just cancel those out. All right, that gives us 2 over 7 or negative 2 over 7. Okay, so we'll kind of make sure you know all the rules of addition, subtraction, multiplication, division as far as negatives go. We'll combine that. You'll have some fraction stuff in here we'll also combine it with. But hopefully that will give you some practice with that. Thanks, guys.